Today's Browns Report is presented to you by Aura. Listen, in a day and age when we are online more than ever, make sure you have Aura to be in your corner and keep you protected, whether it's your wallet or your identity. Start a 14-day free trial at aura.com/chatsports. We'll tell you more about their awesome services later on, but you can get started by clicking on the link in the comments and the description of today's show. So, today's Rumors Roundup is going to involve our good friend Bernie Kosar. We're going to use the Bernie heads as sort of a scale of believability. So we've picked up some new subs since we last used this. So I thought it'd be a good kind of refresher for everyone. The way this works is we take a rumor or story and we assign it 0 through 4 Bernie heads. 0 is fake news. The story is fake. It's not going to happen. And we work our way up to 4 Bernie heads, which is Believeland. You can take it to the bank. So the first story, the biggest one right now, are the Browns interested in signing Ndamukong Suh? I give it 1 Bernie head. I don't think it's fake news. I think there's a little bit of truth to when there's smoke, there's fire. But if you missed it, here's what basically went down yesterday. So we had some random guy with a check mark who works for USA Today that I never heard of, named Tyler Dragon. I think that's an awesome last name. So I'm just going to call him Mr. Dragon. Mr. Dragon tweeting out, the Browns are another team interested in Ndamukong Suh per a source. Expect Suh to sign with a club closer to the start of training camp. The Vikings and Raiders are 2 other teams that have talked to the free agent defensive tackle. So Mr. Dragon tweets that out. And then all the big J's in Cleveland got pretty, I wouldn't say pissed, but they stormed online to refute this claim. So Brad Stainbrook, who does an awesome job of covering the team, well tapped inside Berea, tweeting out, the Browns are not in the mix for Ndamukong Suh, and it is considered unlikely the team will sign the defensive tackle. All right. Then a little bit later, MKC, who's across the pond in London, dealing with Big Ben, tweeting out, have written several times this offseason that the Browns are not interested in Ndamukong Suh. Nothing's changed. All right, so I know that per Twitter she's in London. It's like 6-7 hours ahead, so that puts her in the range of tweeting around 9-10 p.m. You know she had to have been pissed off when she saw this and she's on vacation and she has to spend, even if it's just a little bit of time, tweeting out, shutting down a fake news, some fake story that some guys just ran with and is getting everyone in Browns Twitter, Mr. Dragon, all riled up, all right? Listen, here's kind of my spin on this. Barring a training camp injury, I don't see Ndamukong Suh coming to the Browns. If they were going to do it, I think they would have already done it at this point, to get him a little bit more caught up to speed on the playbook and working with Joe Woods and all that. Now, the other side of the coin is, well, the longer he is not on a team, the cheaper his price tag gets, right? If you signed him back in March, when he's probably asking for whatever his top dollar is, you were going to pay that. But I'm guessing his top dollar, what he's asking for price, has dropped since then because he just wants a job at this point. But before we unpack this even more, let's get you guys involved early on in the show. Should the Browns sign Ndamukong Suh? Simple as can be. S for sign or P for pass. Let me know in the comments, Dawg Pound, if you think the Browns should sign Suh. I think it's important to start maybe by looking at the depth chart here and just evaluating the surface area of Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryan, who are most likely going to be your starting interior defensive tackles. Elliott, pick from a round 3 pick, day 2 pick, but round 3 back in 2020. Taven Bryan, a former first-round pick who comes over from Jacksonville after 4 years down there. You got Tommy Togiai, who he had one good game, the Patriots game last year. I thought he played pretty well. Outside of that, never really saw much of him. Perrion Winfrey, that's the rookie sensation. Everyone is all jazzed up because you got him in round 4 when a lot of mocks had him going in round 2. So based on value alone, you feel like you're getting a Hall of Famer because he fell to you 2 rounds later. I think it is not in the cards for Ndamukong Suh to end up in Cleveland. But what about a guy like Sheldon Richardson? All right. Mary Kay writing just the other day that would most likely be a better name to keep an eye on if Andrew Berry decides, you know what, I had a lot of faith in Jordan Elliott and Tommy Togiai taking a bigger and next step this year now that Malik McDowell and Malik Jackson are gone. But if they're not making that step, And if one preseason game turns into 2 preseason games where the Browns' starting defensive line is not shaping up against some other team's backup offensive lineman very well, that's when you could see Barry go, all right, I gambled and it didn't work out well, but we can still make recover our losses by bringing in a vet like Sheldon Richardson, who knows a thing or two about playing with the Browns. Now, of course, last year, after he was cut, he went and signed with the Vikings, where I thought he was pretty productive, right? Just on a pure stat basis, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. But doing a deeper dive into that, our new guy here at Chat Sports, Patrick Seaman, he's a big Vikings fan. We talked about Richardson before today's show, and that was one of those players where anytime a fan of another team goes, yeah, I wish we brought him back, and your team gets him, you feel like you just won the lottery a little bit because you got, affirmation from the earlier fan base that you got a good player. So I think there's still a lot to be said about Sheldon Richardson, and he's going to end up somewhere. He had a good 2021 season. He can help out in the middle of the defensive line, start clogging up some pores, and bringing down some running backs. Before we get to the rest of the rumors on today's show, like I said at the top, Aura is our proud sponsor today, and here's what they're going to offer you guys. A 14-day, limited time, free trial. That way you can figure out if Aura is right for you, because we shop, we bank, we do everything online. Is there a single part of our lives that is not online at this point? Not really. So if you want to make sure you are secure online, just like how you put a lock on your front door when you leave the house, well, make sure you got a lock online. Thanks to Aura. Start that 14-day free trial at aura.com/chatsports. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Moving on to rumor number 2. Kevin Stefanski. Is he on the hot seat? One Bernie head once again. I don't believe this really whatsoever, but I think your seat's really never that cold in the NFL. So that's why I'm not, hitting it with a flat-out fake news. Now, Fansided wrote an article citing a couple of reasons why Kevin Stefanski could be on the hot seat. And honestly, I think there is a little bit of water being held to this argument after a disappointing 2021 season, where ultimately, Stefanski, you are the head coach. You probably should have pulled Baker much sooner than you actually did. And I'm not going to say this season would have gone drastically different without with Stefanski having a better season, but there's just something to be said about what could be done here. So in this article, they cited a couple things here. We're going to break it all down. But he's entering his 3rd year as a Browns head coach. He's got a career record of 19-14. Of course, we're talking about the AP Coach of the Year back in 2020, who just did not get off on the right foot in 2021. And, of course, when you have an injured quarterback like that, it's not going to help. It's going to derail you a little bit. But ultimately, I'm a believer in Stefanski, and I'm expecting a bounce-back season from him. I think with Deshaun Watson, most coaches should be able to do just fine. So I think Kevin Stefanski is going to be okay. I know there are some people out there in the Browns fan base right now that are not so high on Stefanski after last year and want to give AVP the play sheet. No, dial it down a little bit. Stefanski's the head coach. He is a good coach. I only see one avenue for Kevin Stefanski getting fired after this season. And I don't even like those words coming out of my mouth. But there's a bit of truth to when you win Coach of the Year, your honeymoon period isn't that long. Like Matt Nagy won it for the Bears in 2018. He didn't last terribly long. Jason Garrett won it, and he was out of Dallas not long later. So the only way I see him not sticking around after the season is we have learned from one thing from Andrew Berry. He will not wait, right? Baker Mayfield was injured last year. Baker was awesome down the stretch in 2020. He was a very good quarterback. No one in 2020, after that season, thought Baker would be gone after one more year, right? I don't believe anyone that would have told me back then, oh, Baker, by the way, he's got 1 year left in Cleveland. So Barry has shown us he's not going to wait for anyone. So if he goes out, which he did, and gets an all-star quarterback like Deshaun Watson, and the offense isn't clicking, and the team is lackluster and disappointing, a scapegoat is going to be made. And it's not going to be the quarterback you just gave $230 million guaranteed to. That's really the only way I see Kevin Stefanski not surviving this season, is because if shit hits the fan and they're looking for an out guy, and it ends up falling on Stefanski enough. Well, I know we had a good 2020 season, but this is 2 bad straight years. Yeah, we've got our players. Now we got to get our coach. But do you guys believe in Kevin Stefanski? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no if you are in on Stefanski. I believe in him. I think he's going to have a good season as a coach. Whatever a good season as a coach looks like, he will have a good year. But let me know your thoughts down below. Rumor number 3 on the show. Should the Browns sign Darius Slayton if he is released? So let me give you guys some of the context and backstory here. Well, first, I give it 2 Bernie heads, all right? But the background and context here, producing yesterday for Marshall Green, our Giants Now host, and he talked about how likely it is that Darius Slayton ends up getting released from the Giants, which is a decently big name in terms of a productive wide receiver at one time who's not 30-plus years old. So we know the Browns could possibly use a little bit extra meat in the wide receiver room, and Darius Slayton, a player who just in his rookie season in 2019 had 8 touchdowns, former 5th-round pick, 740 yards. He was a very promising player back in 2019 for the Giants. And then the drops kind of caught up to him, and things sort of went downhill from there. Got a little banged up last year. Just wasn't the player he looked like, or really even half of the player he looked like back in 2019. Now, when we look at this wide receiver room, I have confidence in Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones. I am very, very optimistic and believer in David Bell being fine, but we can't guarantee it. He's a rookie. Anthony Schwartz, I'm kind of in the middle on. He was banged up last year, but he's a track star. But not all track stars can be football players. It doesn't work that way. So I'm open to signing Darius Slayton if he ends up getting cut by the Giants, because he also has a bit of a contract where he's due over $2.5 million, and that could be a clause, or that could be a reason why the Giants ultimately decide to move on from Slayton. And they've drafted Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky, signed Kenny Golladay last year. They've got some other pieces there. I mean, Kadarius Toney, so maybe Slayton is just kind of the odd man out in New York. Ultimately, though, what I'm really trying to get at here is whether it's Darius Slayton or not, I could see there being a way where a reality where the Browns sign some of these players that get cut by other teams because they don't want to trade for Darius Slayton. They don't want to give up a pick, even if it is a 2020, if it's a 2030 7th-round pick. Why not just wait until he probably gets cut, whether it's him or not? Kind of like Kadarius Hodge last year. He ended up with the Lions right after he got cut. He was picked up on waivers. No team wanted to trade for him because they knew the Browns were going to cut him. So just keep your eye on that, whether it's at wide receiver or whether it's even defensive tackle. That could be something Andrew Berry is in the business of being patient, waiting for some cuts to happen, and then picking someone up that he thinks could be a contributor on his roster. All right, kind of rumors roundup here as we go down the home stretch of today's show. Not sure if you guys saw this. It kind of took Twitter by storm yesterday. All For You Cleveland, a great Twitter account to follow. Tweeting out a picture. By the way, photo creds to Matt Starkey. I am not going to get that wrong because that created a hullabaloo on Twitter. Yeah, there was a lot of drama on Twitter yesterday over this. But look at the white helmets. That's what we're looking at here. What do we think? Do we like white helmets? The Bengals are bringing back their white helmets for this season, and they're nasty. Like they are good. I am jealous of those helmets. I like these helmets. I think I like them. I want to like them, but yeah, I'll pencil me in as I like these helmets. I don't know. I like them. That's where I'm going to stand on that. All right, before we get on out of here, it's been a little while, but because of the live show stoppage over the last couple of weeks, we have paused our stadium name challenge, but I want to bring it back here because we're down to our final 2 contenders, Jim Brown Stadium and Lakefront Stadium. This is it, folks. First Energy Stadium is out. Pretty sure City of Cleveland giving me the key, and they're naming the stadium whatever the leading vote getter is from here. So let me know what stadium name you love the most, whether it's Jim Brown, Type 1, or Lakefront, Type 2.